The Sean P. Diddy Combs trial reached a dramatic and emotionally charged moment this week as a key witness, identified only as Jane, took the stand and delivered harrowing testimony about being coerced into attending sex parties hosted by the hip-hop mogul. The courtroom was tense and raw, as Jane described the psychological pressure and fear she experienced, painting a disturbing portrait of the alleged exploitation at the heart of the sex trafficking and racketeering case against Combs. The start of a storm. Jane's testimony marked one of the most explosive moments in the high-profile trial that has captivated public attention for months. Speaking in a clear, steady voice, she detailed how Combs and his associates pressured her into attending lavish hotel parties where sex and drugs were central components. According to Jane, refusal was not an option. The pressure came with threats, intimidation, and manipulation that left her feeling trapped. The 40-year-old witness described how the parties often began with promises of career advancement and glamorous opportunities. However, once at these gatherings, the atmosphere quickly turned dark and coercive. Jane recounted being subjected to unwanted sexual advances by powerful individuals, with Combs allegedly orchestrating the entire operation. "I felt like I was walking into a trap," Jane said. "There was no way out once I got there. I was afraid for my safety." Diddy's reaction, emotional breakdown. As Jane's testimony unfolded, Sean Combs visibly struggled to maintain composure. At times, his face reddened with frustration, and his hands trembled slightly on the defense table. When Jane described explicit details of being coerced and manipulated, Combs's emotional restraint cracked, leading to a tense outburst. At one point, Combs stood abruptly, shouting, "This is a lie! I never forced anyone to do anything." His voice echoed through the courtroom, causing a stir among spectators and legal teams alike. The judge swiftly called for order, reprimanding the defense counsel and instructing Combs to remain seated and respectful. This emotional moment underscored the trial's intensity and the gravity of the allegations facing Combs, who is charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and conspiracy. The defense has maintained that Combs is innocent, describing the accusations as a calculated attempt to tarnish his reputation. The witness's courage, facing a powerful defendant. Jane's testimony during the Sean P. Diddy Combs trial emerged as one of the most emotionally charged moments in this high-profile legal battle. The courtroom fell silent as Jane, a key witness, recounted her traumatic experiences with striking candor and bravery. Despite the immense pressure and the intimidating presence of Combs, one of the most influential figures in the entertainment industry, and his formidable legal team, Jane remained composed and steadfast throughout the grueling hours of testimony. Several times during her testimony, Jane paused, visibly fighting back tears as she detailed the psychological torment she endured. The fear, confusion, and despair she described conveyed the profound human cost behind the sensational headlines. Yet, despite these emotional moments, Jane maintained a determined resolve to share her story truthfully and completely. Legal experts and observers have underscored the pivotal nature of Jane's testimony. It provides the jury and the public with an unfiltered window into the alleged coercive environment that surrounded Combs and his inner circle. Jane's vivid description of lavish hotel sex parties, where drugs, alcohol, and sexual exploitation were rife, contrasts starkly with Combs's polished public persona as a successful businessman, philanthropist, and entertainer. Her account not only alleges direct coercion, but also highlights the systemic nature of exploitation, how young women were pressured under threat, manipulation, or promises of career advancement. The power dynamics at play, underscored by Combs's celebrity and wealth, set the tone for the entire case and challenge the narrative of innocence his defense team presents. Defense strategy: undermining credibility. In response to Jane's compelling testimony, the defense team adopted a classic legal strategy: undermining the credibility of the witness. Led by veteran defense attorney Mark Simmons, the defense aggressively cross-examined Jane in an attempt to sow doubt among jurors. Simmons repeatedly pointed to alleged inconsistencies and contradictions in Jane's statements, emphasizing moments where her recollections seemed to waver or fail to align with other pieces of evidence. The defense also highlighted Jane's past struggles, including documented battles with substance abuse and financial instability, suggesting that these factors might have influenced her perception or motives. Ms. Jane's story is riddled with contradictions and inconsistencies, Simmons argued in his questioning. Her motivations are questionable, and her testimony should be viewed with skepticism. There is simply no concrete evidence that directly ties Mr. Combs to coercion or trafficking. These allegations appear to be personal grievances, amplified by prosecutorial pressure. The defense sought to frame Jane not as a victim, but as a troubled individual with reasons to fabricate or exaggerate her story. This tactic aimed to weaken her impact on the jury and shift attention away from the broader allegations against Combs. However, prosecutors were prepared for this line of attack. They introduced a trove of corroborating evidence designed to support Jane's narrative and counter the defense's claims. This included text messages exchanged between Combs and various associates, audio recordings that allegedly captured incriminating conversations, and testimonies from other witnesses who described similar coercive behavior and the culture surrounding these illicit parties. The prosecution's strategy emphasized patterns of behavior and the consistency of multiple independent accounts, reinforcing the credibility of Jane's testimony and portraying it as part of a larger, systemic abuse of power. Broader implications: a spotlight on industry abuse. Beyond the immediate courtroom drama, this trial has ignited a broader conversation about the abuse of power in the entertainment industry. Experts and advocates point to Jane's testimony as emblematic of a widespread problem, where influential figures exploit their status to manipulate and control vulnerable individuals. It's not just about one person or one incident, said Dr. Lisa Matthews, a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and coercion. Jane's courage in coming forward sheds light on a pervasive culture that enables abuse while silencing victims through fear and intimidation. This trial has thus become a flashpoint for discussions on how the entertainment world operates behind the scenes. It underscores how power imbalances and celebrity status can be weaponized to exploit aspiring artists, models, or employees. The systemic nature of these abuses often leaves victims feeling isolated and powerless, as Jane testified. Advocacy groups for victims of trafficking and sexual exploitation have rallied around the case, viewing it as an opportunity to push for stronger protections, better reporting mechanisms, and more accountability from powerful figures. The case has also inspired calls for industry-wide reforms and increased awareness campaigns to empower potential victims to speak out. Media coverage of the trial has been extensive, with daily revelations peeling back the layers of the complex web involving Combs and his associates. The public's response has been one of shock, disbelief, and empathy for those affected, with many seeing Jane's testimony as a watershed moment in the fight against abuse in elite circles. What's next in the trial? With Jane's testimony now complete, the trial is expected to move into a critical phase. Prosecutors plan to call additional witnesses whose accounts align with Jane's, further solidifying their case. These testimonies, combined with documentary evidence such as travel logs, financial records, and intercepted communications, aim to paint a comprehensive picture of the alleged criminal enterprise. Meanwhile, the defense will intensify its efforts to dismantle the prosecution's narrative. They are expected to continue highlighting perceived inconsistencies, attacking the reliability of witnesses, and appealing to jurors' doubts. The defense will also stress the absence of direct physical evidence linking Combs to coercion or trafficking activities. Legal analysts watching the trial believe that Jane's emotional and detailed testimony may have a significant impact on jurors. The stark contrast between her vulnerable account and Combs's confident demeanor creates a compelling narrative about power, influence, and accountability. However, the ultimate verdict remains uncertain, hinging on whether the jury believes the prosecution has proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The emotional toll on everyone involved. The courtroom atmosphere during Jane's testimony was electric, charged with tension, raw emotion, and palpable conflict. For Jane, the experience was both harrowing and liberating, recounting traumatic events in front of a national audience while confronting the man she accuses. For Combs, the moment represented one of the trial's most difficult challenges. His rare emotional outburst, breaking the strict courtroom decorum, revealed the immense personal stakes. The public sees him as a music icon and entrepreneur, but in the courtroom, he faces grave allegations that threaten to dismantle his legacy. For the jury, Jane's testimony presented a human face to complex allegations. Instead of abstract charges, they heard a story of manipulation, fear, and exploitation, making the decision before them deeply personal and consequential. Conclusion: a turning point in a high-profile case. The explosive testimony from Jane, coupled with Sean P. Diddy, Combs's intense courtroom reaction, marks a watershed moment in one of the most closely watched entertainment industry trials in recent history. The trial transcends the fate of a single celebrity, delving into issues of power, abuse, and justice that resonate far beyond the courtroom walls. As the legal battle unfolds, the nation watches with bated breath, grappling with uncomfortable questions about the dark underbelly of fame and the courage it takes to confront it. Jane's bravery in facing a powerful defendant has set the tone for the remainder of the trial and may well influence its outcome. Regardless of the verdict, this trial is likely to leave a lasting impact on the entertainment industry and the broader cultural conversation about accountability, victim rights, and systemic reform.